Welcome to the program. Officials in Russia say there's little hope of finding any more survivors among more than 100 people still missing after a pleasure boat sank in the Volga River. Dozens of divers have been searching the choppy, murky waters of the river, but a spokeswoman for the emergency ministry said the chances of finding more survivors were minimal. As Daniel Griffiths now reports, there were emotional scenes as the rescued were brought to shore.
Russian officials worked through the night in the hunt for survivors from the Bulgaria. Here they set up an emergency field camp for relatives of the missing. At the nearby rescue centre, anxious relatives wanted answers. This man's only daughter was on board. Desperation turning to anger.
There were my daughter, granddaughter and son-in-law, you know. My only daughter. Show me anybody. Maybe you have picked up my daughter already.
All day long, rescue workers searched the Volga for survivors. Around 100 passengers and crew are still missing. We couldn't find anything along the shore, says this man. We saw and heard nothing. Just silence and the waves rolling in. Nobody there. The Bulgaria was 55 years old and still in service. It was on a weekend cruise down the Volga and packed with passengers when disaster struck. The ship reportedly lurched to the right in stormy weather. It sank in minutes. Some passengers were rescued. Earlier in the day, they were taken to Kazan, where the cruise had started. Two boats passed by while I was in the water, this man says, but only the third stopped to pick us up. For many relatives waiting, there was little news. This woman says her three sisters were on the cruise. One had telephoned to say she was alive, but she has no idea where the others are. The authorities say the rescue effort will continue. These relatives have no option but to wait and hope. Daniel Griffiths, BBC News.
It's been a weekend of celebration for the people of South Sudan, the world's newest nation. But after the parties, the challenge now is to maintain stability both in the south and in the Republic of Sudan. After decades of civil war ended by a peace deal in 2005, there still remains disagreement over the oil-rich area of Abyei. President Omar al-Bashir of Sudan has told the BBC that his country wants a peaceful resolution to the disputed border region, but he did not rule out the use of force if the newly independent state of South Sudan were to take up arms to keep Abyei. In his first interview since the breakup of Sudan, he's been speaking exclusively to Zainab Badawi.
When we achieved peace, it was based on a conviction, and the last battle between us and the Sudan People's Liberation Army was in Torit, in which we decimated southern SPLA troops. We were fighting for peace, and we divided Sudan for peace, and we are keen on preserving peace. We should never fight unless we are compelled to do so.
But you might, if Abyei were to stay with the South? I mean, it's a very simple question. Do you foresee any possibility that North and South Sudan could take up arms against each other over this issue of Abyei?
أبيي عندها بروتوكول إذا تم حلها بالحل السلمي.
There's a protocol on Abyei, a protocol that governs Abyei if there's a peaceful solution. But in the past, we were forced to fight when they tried to impose a new reality.
Crisis talks between President Obama and the political leaders in Congress have failed to break the deadlock over how to avoid a default by the United States on its financial obligations. America's Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner has warned of catastrophic damage to the global economy if Congress fails to agree a deal soon on the country's unprecedented $14 trillion debt. Talks will resume later. At least 60 people were killed in a train crash in northern India on Sunday. Police say more than 200 other passengers were injured when the train derailed between the cities of Kanpur and Allahabad. Rescuers worked through the night to reach people trapped in the wreckage. It was the second major train accident in Uttar Pradesh state in a week. The United States top military officers expressed concerns that territorial disputes in the South China Sea could lead to an unexpected outbreak of violence in the region. Admiral Mike Mullen is on a visit to China, which is embroiled in rows with the Philippines and Vietnam about territory in the South China Sea. In Syria, supporters of the government and some of its critics are to hold a second day of talks in the capital, Damascus. The government says the national dialogue will help chart a course towards multi-party democracy, but many opposition